Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Vikings Vent Line still lives on, though, every Sunday right here on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. Vikings Vent Line is a place for Vikings fans or NFL fans, doesn't matter. You can be either or, but preferably Vikings fans, of course. Vent Line airs every Sunday on the off-season edition with myself. I like to bring on as many Vikings fans as possible to talk about the off-season, upcoming expectations for this season. So if you'd like to be part of a future episode, you can hit me up. It's vikingsventline@gmail.com. That's where I track all the listeners' requests. So if you'd like to be on this episode for the first time, you've always wanted to be on, maybe you're just discovering Purple Daily, would love to hear from you, would love to talk to you, hit me up. It's vikingsventline@gmail.com. During the regular season, Mackie, Judd, and myself welcome on as many Vikings fans as possible immediately after every Vikings game. So that's a different fun edition. We're getting closer. We're about 2 months away from the regular season starting against the Giants, so can't wait for that, but the offseason edition lives on too. Hit me up, vikingsventline@gmail.com. Purple Daily, of course, daily Vikings entertainment powered by our friends at Quick Trip. Go stop at a Quick Trip if you're near one of the best gas stations and just convenience stores around. Shout out to Quick Trip for sponsoring programming on Vikings Vent Line. All right, let's get our guys in here. Let's get Duke and James. We're a little bit all over the country, all over the globe, I really should say, the continent. We got Duke, who's down in Virginia. James is in Canada. Duke, you said you grew up in Minnesota, and now you're in Virginia. I feel like the most popular region of Vikings fans joining is like North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, right around that line. How are you watching Vikings games every year? Are you getting Sunday ticket? Are you going to bars? You're obviously still ingrained in Vikings country down there in Virginia, I take it.
Yeah, I am. So my parents have DirecTV, so we can watch the games with DirecTV stream. So I'm able to watch all of them on the home network while I'm in Virginia. But they've had a few games in this area, so I've been traveling to the ones that are close too.
Okay. Nice. And they're playing Tennessee this year, right? Are they playing the Titans this year?
They are playing Tennessee in Tennessee, I'm pretty sure, and also in Jacksonville. And Jacksonville is only, I'd say, like a 10-hour drive from where I'm at. So okay. I might be traveling down for that one.
Nice, man. That'll be awesome. I mean, I know both Tennessee and Jacksonville to a degree. I know Tennessee is like a great contingent of Vikings fans, always go to there. We've had some Tennessee fans on before. And Jacksonville should be a fun time, too. That'll be a great game. So that's awesome, and you're able to make a lot of those road trips. James, you're up in Canada, and you were telling me off, Mike, you're in like a default type of Seahawk territory, but Canada gets at least some of the NFL teams, the Bills, the Vikings, the Seahawks are probably the closest, obviously, to the border. How long have you been a Vikings fan?
Since day one. I inherited this legacy from my dad, Vikings and Leafs. So I want one of my teams to win a championship. I've got two teams. I know Leafs has been 67 years, and obviously we all share the Vikings plight of, let's get one before we all die. So I'm hoping that's sooner rather than later.
Absolutely, man. Leafs and Vikings. I mean, I know Sports Dad doesn't come on the off-season edition, but I mean, he would feel your pain there and getting to talk hockey and Vikings with you. Those are two not tortured fans. You could probably say tortured fan bases, I'm guessing, huh?
Well, yeah, like we set a record for the Leafs, 7 out of 8 years, losing Game 7 in the first round. Obviously the Vikings from Darren Nelson drop to the Favre pass. I won't belabor the Gary Anderson you guys have covered this week. All sorts of, misadventures along the way. But, I'm a loyal fan. I'm not going to change it. My daughter was like, Daddy, why don't you? You can't. It's like, once I'm in, I'm in. It's
Absolutely.
That's what makes this fan base so great, is that we all stick with it through ups, downs, everything else. And hope springs eternal every year. We're always tied at 0 to start the year.
Just one before we die. That's what you can just tell your daughter, right? And hopefully both of you guys get to experience that in your lifetime. So,
Sports Dad shirt, I might grab one of those myself.
Yes, absolutely. Well, guys, let's get into some topics here on Vikings Vent Line. Duke, I'm going to start with you. What are your expectations for these first-round picks? So they get J.J. McCarthy, might be a long-term succession plan there, maybe a short-term plan. They also grab Dallas Turner with the trade-up. What are your expectations for the Vikings' 2 first-round picks from this year's draft?
Well, I mean, the beauty of what the Vikings have done is the absence of expectations. Am I right? I mean, Dallas Turner is third on the depth chart behind Grenard and Van Ginkel. So we're not even going to see him on the field all that much, I don't expect. You'll see all three of them on the field, I believe, with their defensive coordinator. He's going to be throwing them at all costs, just mixing in, doing a bunch of random things, just trying to throw off the offense. And J.J. McCarthy, the success for the season is if he doesn't see the field. So the expectations are bare minimum, and it's just a season where we're just going to be sitting back and watching Justin Jefferson set records.
Nothing wrong with that either, watching JJ obviously tear it up. So with Dallas Turner, to your point, there might be a little bit of a surplus. They've kind of replenished that defense with free agency and the draft. But, I mean, do you have expectations for like a sack number? Do you have expectations overall? I know you said the lack of expectations is probably honestly a positive, but do you have any expectations for Dallas Turner on the defensive side?
I'd be happy with 4. 4 sacks is probably good, but I mean, if he takes a season to kind of learn from the older guys, that's also a win for the Vikings. I mean, we don't need to see him go and set a new record as a rookie. I don't think the expectation for any rookie should be set that high. So just to see him look good on the field for a few games is all I want.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Brian Flores does with kind of a replenished cupboards of goods here, and hopefully he can, turn around this defense consistently. He's in year 2, which is good. Vikings are trying to get back to being a more stout defensive team after the Zimmer years kind of eroded there. So we'll see what Dallas Turner is able to inject from a young blood side on the defensive side of the ball. James, how about you, man? What are your expectations for these 2 rookies here? Both 2 first-round picks. One might be long-term. Both these guys might be kind of a slow grow into both the offense and defensive side. What are your expectations for McCarthy and Turner?
Well, I have sort of different expectations. JJ, I expect him to hold a clipboard most of the year, learn, develop, because I've seen the success with other organizations having a good young quarterback. I think he has all the physical tools. Obviously, I'm not at OTAs and camp and everything else, so I haven't seen it in person. I just see what he's done on TV. But I think his long-term success, starting in 2025, and then Super Bowl 2026 is what I'm thinking as well, because I think he has the physical tools, but more importantly, I think he has the mental game to win. Like all the moments, like game against Alabama, he didn't look, that 4th quarter drive where he went down, tied the game, 4th down, boom. He marched them down the field against one of the top defenses in college football. He handles himself well, and I like draft party. He had everyone around, all his family. He was close to where the draft was, but he chose to spend it with those who had supported him to get there, which to me shows good character as well. And anyone who was a former hockey player here in Canada, if you're a hockey player, that's golden. And anyone who, during a post-draft interview, puts Wayne Gretzky on dismiss, to me that shows that he's not intimidated by any level of intimidation by player or otherwise. My expectations are a little different than Duke's about Dallas Turner. I like the idea of Defensive Rookie of the Year, 8 to 10 sacks. I think he gets more playing time as he gets on the field. Just athletic-wise, I watched him play in college. He's got that athletic drive. But what I picked up to, and this may be just reading some of the things I saw, pick 17, when he got drafted, he wasn't high-fiving. He gave some hugs. He walked from the back to the front with a purpose. He looked like a little bit of chip on the shoulder. I referenced Justin Jefferson, Randy Moss, falling a little bit. They came into the league with a little bit of a chip. And I think he's got that mentality, is that he probably saw, like, I know players say they don't look at the mock drafts. I don't believe that. But they're sitting on their phone seeing where people are thinking they're going. Projected top 10 pick, top defensive player going. He doesn't get picked there. So I think he's coming in with a little bit, hey, I got something to prove, and he wants to prove that those other teams that didn't draft him made a mistake.
Absolutely. I mean, anytime you get a defensive guy like that who fell, honestly, like to your point, he was a top 10 guy in a lot of big boards. He knew that. He was talking with his agent, obviously game planning of what range he was going to go in. And I'm sure there really probably wasn't too many conversations of him falling, maybe not even outside the top 10, but the top 15, he goes all the way to 17. So any guy that has a chip on his shoulder ready to sack the quarterback, I absolutely love that too. And yeah, with McCarthy, could be a succession plan. I do love the wiring, to your point, James. I think he's wired just so differently, and that leadership quality that quarterbacks need to have, he definitely has that. And the physical tools as they translate to the NFL might take a little bit of time, but nothing wrong with that either. I think we'll get into some Sam Darnold conversation maybe in a little bit, but I think it's a good thing that he's going to be, slowly learning this offense, and that's probably good news for his success long term. On the other side, so Kwesi's first draft, he takes Lewis Cine. He traded all the way back for him. He took Andrew Booth. Booth has seen the field more than Cine, but it kind of feels like both these guys are on the outside looking in of making the 53-man roster as they enter year 3 in the NFL. Duke, at this point, are you cool? Just swallow that draft and flush it and move on from it? Like, does it change your view of Kwesi at all? What are your kind of thoughts if the Vikings do move on from their first 2 picks in the Kwesi era?
Well, Declan, I'm sure you could relate to this. I've always had roommates that are kind of messy, and they like to leave their dishes in the sink.
Yeah.
Can you relate to that?
Yes, I can. Yes. I might have been one of those guys, but yes, I do know what you mean.
Well, Lewis Cine is the dish pile of shame that's sitting in the sink, starting to smell bad, picking up a little bit of mold. You avoid looking at it, you avoid thinking about it or addressing it as long as you possibly can, but you need to take it out, or you need to wash those dishes. And I mean, it's not anything personal. I think a lot of it does have to do with that injury. It's not exactly his fault, but it's time for us to sever some ties there. Just let him go. And I mean, Andrew Booth Jr. is in the same boat. Barely touched the field. He's probably going to make the roster in my mind, but he's got to do something or he's going to be off the team next season.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't look at it as a damning point of Kwesi. I look at it more of like, all right, it was his first draft. He definitely wanted to stockpile some extra picks. In a way, he has still made some very positive moves for the Vikings. Is it a little bit of a blemish? Certainly it is, but I also don't look at, because they missed out, or I don't look at it as Lewis Cine and Andrew Booth not making contributions to the 2024 Vikings as that team itself not living up to expectations. So if it's time to flush it and just kind of move on from those guys, I'm totally good with that. Love the roommate comparison there. Yes, I've in college, I lived with upwards of 6 guys. So I know exactly how it is when you have a couple messy roommates, even if I was sometimes one of those guys included. James, how about you? Are you all right with these guys just kind of moving on from and just focusing on this year's team and letting these guys just basically hit the streets?
I want the best 53 on our roster. And I agree with Duke, not compounding a mistake. I wasn't a big fan when they dropped down with Kyle Hamilton and Jordan Davis sitting there at 12 back then, but you can't go back in retrospective and do that. But yeah, we need the best 53 on the roster, and you can't marry yourself to the ugly duckling sort of thing. He's had time, he's had an injury, but he's not showing any growth. He's not showing the talent that they thought they had. And again, you're probably right to the point. He's could be a Donatel guy. Donatel maybe have liked the way he played. Flores may be a little bit different on how he wants to use Booth and Cine. They may not fit into his scheme. And for me, I'm a Vikings fan first, and I have no loyalty to those 2 guys. It's disappointing if the draft didn't go as well. I don't hold Kwesi responsible for that. First year getting input from the defensive coordinator and, as you said, stockpiling picks. And I like the opposite approach this year, getting aggressive, moving up a little bit. I always watch the draft and then we trade back. I'm like, oh man, not again, not the year where we're trading back. That's why I was looking forward to us moving up this year. But yeah, I'm with you guys. Like, time to clean out the dishes, take out the trash, wherever you want to put it. Evict the roommates. Whatever we need to do to turn this franchise into the Super Bowl champion we all want it to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I like what Kwesi has done. Jordan Addison was obviously a great pick last year. Ivan Pace was a solid UDFA. We'll see if with all the other middle round picks that they've made, but clearly there's a long-term vision here. And outside of the Vikings, basically not just only winning like 2 or 3 games this season, which I don't think will happen. It would take probably like even a catastrophic collapse of the locker room and leadership, I think, for Kwesi and Kevin not to be here long-term. So the first draft, flush it away, and then move on, and hopefully you got a competitive team going forward. So with that, I know there's not a lot of expectations. Duke, I know I liked your line of not having expectations is probably actually a good thing for this year's team. Do you think there's a scenario, though, where they are, the Vikings, a playoff team in 2024? Or is this more of just a transitional type of learning season?
I mean, playoffs, we're just trying to win a game. No.
Yeah.
The goal of this season is not playoffs or bust, obviously. But I won't be surprised when they make it there. I'm saying that they are going to make it. There's too much talent on this roster for them to tank. There's too much talent on this roster for them to lose more than eight or 9 games. So they've got explosive talent, and I say that they're going to squeak into a wild card spot. Whether or not they go past that, I don't know. I don't really care either. I saw a Pioneer Press article the other day that suggested that KOC and Kwesi need to be on the hot seat this season, and that there's no way that the Wilfs are thinking that they're on a hot seat, especially with the draft class that we just got. They've been very patient in their history of ownership with the franchise. They've probably let Rick Spielman get a little bit too far. Probably should have let him go sooner. But, I mean, Ziggy's seems bought in to the picks that we got this season, just in the videos and the pictures that we've seen. Could be PR, but it does look like there's a lot of hope for the future with the ownership. And this season is just, like I said, it's just all about Justin Jefferson, especially with him getting that big contract.
Yeah, the Wilfs aren't quick to have like a gut reaction and make a brash decision. Like that's just not really their forte, and I think that's actually mostly a credit to them. There's been times where, yeah, maybe they've been a little bit aggressive, and probably also some times where they were too patient with, certain eras and players and coaches of the Vikings. But there is a scenario where they do make the playoffs. That's probably Sam Darnold either exceeding expectations or obviously JJ McCarthy stepping in maybe earlier than we think, and he's just lights out and really damn good. In general, things are kind of gearing up and pointing, I think, towards 2025 as being the year of, all right, now this thing is ready to go and pop. Justin Jefferson's there. You've loaded up on defense. Dallas Turner is hopefully going to be obviously a linchpin on the defense for a long time. There's a scenario where they make the playoffs, but I think your expectations of not having any are a good way to look at this season. How about you, James? Do you think the Vikings are a playoff team? Can they squeeze in? Can they sneak in? Or can they just in general surprise some people and be a playoff foe in 2024?
No, I agree with you on your point. I saw they have, I think, top 5 talent. When you look at last year, 7-10 could have easily have been 11-6. Cincinnati, Denver, that embarrassing Chicago Monday night football game, the 2 games against Detroit. If we had competent quarterback play, Sam Darnold, I don't think he's Kirk Cousins, but I don't think he's the other end either. And I think another thing that hasn't really been talked about much, Aaron Jones, he's on a 1-year deal. He got rejected by the Packers, for lack of a better term. They cut him late in the free agency cycle. They didn't give him many options. He averages, 4.5, 5 yards a carry. I think, he could be a difference maker in the running game. And I think there again, talking about guys with a chip, I bet you those 2 Green Bay games, he's, going to be so hyped that, could be career type games. But yeah, I think they can sneak into a wild card, but as you stated, Dex, it comes down to what kind of quarterback play we get. I like to be optimistic. I agree that Darnold had dumpster fires where he played before. He was picked 3 for a reason. And if anyone can turn him around, it's our offensive staff for that. As you said, Mullins threw it for 400 yards 2 games. He coached Dobbs to a win against Atlanta when he had no business winning those games, those sorts of things. So I'm confident. It's not an expectation. I won't be disappointed if they don't make the playoffs, but I'm not going to be surprised. And actually, I like Duke's point of no expectations. The league's going to sleep. Who knows? We've improved in every area, talent-wise. Defensively, yes, we don't have Hunter anymore, but I think we've got a better room. Quarterback-wise, I said, you don't know what you're going to get. I'll take a Baker Mayfield resurrection type season. And I think if he does, we've got the talent and the weapons that you can't double cover one of our receivers without leaving Hawkinson, Addison open, Aaron Jones out of the backfield. Like we got, all the weapons to make defensive coordinators lose a bit of hair during the season.
I love the point about also, Aaron Jones having, his head on fire and ready to stick it to Green Bay for 2 games a year. And I think there's a lot still left in that tank, even though running backs, can kind of fall off a cliff production-wise. I think him missing some time, which he has battled injuries, is probably actually a good thing for the, mileage on the tires essentially. And I think Aaron Jones is going to be a big part of fixing that running game that KOC is just still trying to figure out with that Rubik's Cube of his offense. So he might be the missing piece that puts everything together. And we'll see if the Vikings can, surprise some people, as there's always turnover in the NFL at the playoff field. And maybe the Vikings are actually one of those teams that can sneak in the postseason. Before we wrap up, Duke, any last takes, any shout outs you'd love to give here on Vikings Vent Line? The floor is yours.
Well, I guess I got to shout out my parents for moving us to Minnesota in the first place. So I was born in Florida. I grew up in Florida in between their first World Series and their second World Series. So right in that area, I grew up a Marlins fan for the most part, and I didn't care about any other sport but baseball until we moved to Minnesota. And I didn't like the move to Minnesota because the other option was Boston. And I felt like Boston was probably a better place to live. They got championships. They got the Red Sox. I mean, what more do you want? But so my first experience with the Vikings was actually the wild card game against the Seahawks, where I was rooting against the Vikings because I just wasn't happy that I was in Minnesota, and it took some time to learn to love the state, and now I'm just a full supporter.
Well, I mean, being a Marlins fan though, like late '90s and early both those World Series wins, that's nice. Like you kind of stumbled into that too.
Well, I mean, I was like 2 years old when they won the 2003 World Series, so I didn't get to experience it. I get to hear. We had a couple of DVDs from both of those World Series that had every single full game. So I've seen all of them. I got to see the Josh Beckett Masterclass.
Yeah.
I got one of his jerseys hanging up in my closet. One of my favorite players of all time. But man, the Marlins and the Twins are Marlins and all Minnesota sports are just pretty much the same thing for different reasons. Marlins just like to trade all their talent. Miguel Cabrera, Giancarlo Stanton, Christian Yelich, Marcelo Zuna, JT Realmuto can go on and on with all the all-stars and MVPs that they've gotten rid of. Luis Ariz this year. Oh my goodness. But yeah, I mean, thankfully I ended up in Minnesota. And I also got to thank you guys for keeping me hooked on all Minnesota sports throughout the year, even when it's in the off season like it is right now.
Awesome, man. Well, appreciate it. Go Twins. Maybe go Marlins to a degree too. Let's hopefully obviously also see the Vikings obviously win the Super Bowl to kind of cap this whole thing off. James, how about you, man? Any last takes, any shout outs you want to give here on Vent Line?
I'll give my take, and it's sort of the Aaron Jones write it down type take. I think 1,000-yard season, 8 to 10 touchdowns. I'd put that on the board, so to speak, when it comes to any parting shots when it comes to your writing down segment. Shouting out again, Dad, for getting me hooked on this legacy. So hopefully we can watch together a championship for both our hockey and football teams. The support I've had from my family, my brother, my nephew, who's inherited seems the only guy in the family who's inherited my passion for sports. So shout out to my nephew Zach. And then for me, I'm an autistic individual, so I always want to shout out to all those parents, organizations that help support autism awareness, acceptance, all that sort of thing. And again, shout out to you guys. As I'm a long ways away, you guys keep me informed. It's entertaining. I look forward to coming down to another game. I was down at the Thanksgiving game a couple years ago, which was a good weekend. Vikings beat the Pats, and then Leafs beat the Wild. I know that's not good for you guys, but I enjoyed the weekend and stuff, and plan to go down to LA, hopefully, to the Rams-Vikes game that weekend, because I've never experienced a road Vikings game. So
nice, yeah.
Thinking of that would be a nice, fun weekend in October to get out of chilly Canada to go down to the warmth of California and enjoy some Vikings football live and in person.
Absolutely. Well, guys, great stuff. Great takes. Appreciate you both for joining Vikings Vent Line. If anyone wants to be on a future episode like these two guys were, hit me up. It's vikingsventline@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you. Purple Daily, Daily Vikings Entertainment. We just want to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl before we die.